That's where you left me, ... single quotes. He said, staring at a house he's never been to. My son is the center of my universe. From the moment he was born, my life, which had once been my own, reoriented itself completely around him. Every decision, every hope, every fear was for Ben. I am a devoted father. It is not just a role I play. It is the core of my identity. It is the one undeniable truth of my existence. Or so I thought, until a quiet Sunday drive, when my 6-year-old son looked at me from the back seat and accused me of a crime I had no memory of committing. We were lost. We'd taken a wrong turn on our way back from a pumpkin patch and were meandering through the sleepy back roads of a neighboring county. It was a landscape of forgotten farms and quiet, unassuming towns. We passed down a street of small, clapboard houses, all built in a similar, modest style. It was completely unremarkable. Then, from the back seat, Ben's small voice cut through the car's quiet hum. "Stop." "Why, buddy?" I asked, glancing in the rearview mirror. "See a cool dog?" "Stop the car, Daddy," he repeated, his voice devoid of its usual childish lilt. It was flat, heavy. I pulled over. He was staring out the window at one of the houses. It was a small, pale blue house, neat and tidy, but utterly anonymous. There was nothing about it that would catch a child's eye. "What is it, Ben?" I asked, a flicker of confusion starting to build. He didn't look away from the house. He just looked at its reflection in the glass of his window. Then his eyes shifted and met mine in the rearview mirror. The look in them was not the look of my 6-year-old son. It was ancient, filled with a sorrow and a sense of betrayal that was centuries old. "That's the house," he said, his voice a quiet, gaming whisper. "That's where you left me." The accusation hung in the silence of the car, a physical thing. My wife, Maya, turned to look at me, her face a mask of bewilderment. I tried to laugh, a strangled, hollow sound. "What a silly game, Ben. We've never been here before." "Yes, we have," he replied, his gaze unwavering. "A long time ago. You said you'd be right back." The rest of the drive home was a tomb of silence. I tried to shake it off, to classify it as the strangest, most elaborate fantasy a child could conjure. But I couldn't shake the look in his eyes. It was a look of recognition. He wasn't just looking at me, his father. He was looking at someone. He used to know Dot in the weeks that followed. The story I'd been telling myself about my own life began to unravel. I started to notice things, small quirks in Ben's behavior that now seemed like echoes of that moment in the car. He had always been clingy, but now his fear of me leaving, even just to go to another room, became profound. "Don't go," he pleaded, his small hands gripping my shirt. "Promise you'll stay." He started talking in his sleep, not about monsters or cartoons, but about the dust. He'd whimper about a cough that hurt his chest and being thirsty, so thirsty. And sometimes, in the dead of night, he would call out a name in his sleep, a name that wasn't mine. "Jed," he'd cry out. "Jed, don't leave me here." The name echoed in my own mind, stirring something I couldn't grasp. I started having fragmented dreams of my own, the feeling of rough canvas under my fingers, the taste of dust in my throat, the weight of a small, feverish body leaning against mine. I felt a guilt so pervasive, so heavy, it felt like my own skin. It was a guilt without a source, a grief without a memory. I had to know. My investigation wasn't like the ones from the stories I'd read. I wasn't just investigating a ghost. I was investigating myself. I drove back to the small town, back to the pale blue house. I parked across the street and just stared at it, feeling a bizarre sense of homecoming and dread. Dot, an elderly woman, was watering the flowers in the yard next door. I got out of the car, my heart pounding, and approached her. I made up a story about being a historian, interested in the architecture of the area. I asked her how long she'd lived there. My whole life, she said, smiling. My parents built this house right here. I pointed to the blue house. Do you remember who lived there? A long time ago? Her smile faded. Oh, that house has a sad story. Before the folks who live there now, and the folks before them, ... Way back, during the Dust Bowl, a poor family stayed there one winter. Migrant workers, I think. My mother used to tell me about them. A tragedy. A tragedy? I prompted my voice. Hoarse. They had 2 boys, she said, her eyes distant. The little one got terribly sick with that dust pneumonia. The older one, just a teenager himself, went off to find a doctor in the next town during a blizzard. They found his body in a snowdrift weeks later. He never made it. She shook her head. And the little one, he died all alone in that house, waiting for his brother to come back. Did you know their names? I asked, the words barely audible. Oh, heavens no. That was years before I was born. Just a sad old story. A sad old story. The story my son was living in his dreams. I drove to the county courthouse that afternoon, my mind a maelstrom of fear and a strange dawning recognition. I searched the death records for the winter of 1936, the year the old woman had mentioned, and I found them. 2 certificates, filed weeks apart. The first was for a boy, age 7. Name, Samuel Sammy Miller. Place of death, 14 Sycamore Street, the address of the Blue House. Cause of death, pneumonia. The second was for a young man, age 19. Name, Jedediah Jed Miller. Body discovered in a field 5 miles north of town. Cause of death, exposure. Sammy and Jed, the names my son whispered in the dark. The brothers. From the old woman's story. And with a certainty so absolute, it felt like a memory breaking through the surface of my own mind. I knew. I was Jed. And then was my Sammy. The love I feel for my son is the central truth of my life. But now I understood why. It is a love forged in a previous life, a bond of brotherhood, and a promise that was tragically broken. My fierce, all-consuming need to protect him in this life is my soul's desperate attempt to atone for failing him in the last. My life is not my own. It is an apology. A second chance. That night, I went into Ben's room as he slept. The house was quiet. The ghosts were quiet. I knelt by his bed and looked at his peaceful face, and for the first time, I allowed myself to remember. I remembered the dust, the coughing, the fear. I remembered a desperate promise to my little brother that I would be right back with help. I remembered the blinding snow, the biting cold, and the profound final sorrow of my failure. I'm sorry. Sammy, I whispered across the chasm of 80 years. I tried to come back. I got lost in the storm. I am so sorry I left you. The next morning, Ben woke up and padded into the living room where I was sitting. He crawled into my lap and hugged me tighter than usual. He laid his head against my chest and was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked up at me, his eyes clear and calm, all the ancient sadness gone. It's okay, Jed, he said softly. I know you tried. You're here now. He has never called me Jed since. He has never mentioned the house or the water or the promise. It is over. The apology was offered, and it was accepted. The debt has been paid, but the knowledge of it is now woven into the fabric of my being. Our relationship is more than father and son. It is a story of 2 brothers, separated by a tragedy, who found each other again across time. My life's purpose is to be a good father, to never leave my son, and now I know why. It is the only promise I have ever truly made, a promise my soul has spent nearly a century trying to keep, A promise I finally came home to fulfill.